Bloom and Delma decided to get married. After a long-term relationship, everything was perfectly planned. Their wedding was to take place in the spring, in a beautiful country house. But as the wedding day approached, strange things began to happen. The place where their wedding was to be held was an old mansion, and had been abandoned for many years. At first glance, everything was normal. But as we got closer to the wedding day, things got strange. When Bloom and Delma arrived at the mansion for the last rehearsal before the wedding, they noticed that they were hearing strange noises. That was the beginning of the story. During the rehearsal, the curtains began to swing without wind. The doors mysteriously closed and opened, and a cold air began to dominate the room. Bloom and Delma did not care about these events, thinking that they were tired of thinking. But when the wedding day came, everything became more complicated. Bloom, while wearing her wedding dress, saw a shadow pass through the mirror, but there was no one around. Later in the wedding, the guests also began to experience strange things. The taste of the dishes became strange, the flowers began to fade, and the invited guests suffered severe headaches as the wedding approached its climax. Many mysterious figures began to appear in the old garden of the manor. Some of them came close to the middle of the wedding, but they didn't look like anyone. While Bloom and Delma are trying to complete their wedding in a panic, strange beings surround them. They couldn't communicate with them, but it was obvious that these beings wanted to add something to their wedding. Finally, at the end of the wedding, Bloom and Delma learned about the mysterious past of the mansion. Many years ago, strange rituals were performed here, and dark forces were summoned. Their wedding was part of the return of these dark forces, and they were trying to incorporate them into the practices of the old days again. Bloom and Delma tried to deal with these dark forces and save their wedding, but the consequences were terrible. The curse of the manor affected not only their wedding, but also their lives. In the end, instead of completing their wedding, they became victims of this mysterious mansion and were dragged into an endless nightmare. Their wedding turned into an unforgettable horror story, and the spirits of this cursed manor still roam around that old manor, waiting for their other victims. As the battle against the dark forces inside the mansion continues, Bloom and Delma begin to investigate to find a way to disrupt the ancient rituals. They studied old documents and tried to figure out how to repatriate these evil entities. However, this search has led them to even more dangerous events. The manor got worse and worse, the anger of the ghosts increased, and at night it began to fill with strange sounds, screams, and shadows. Their friends and family began to see these strange events, realizing that their wedding had turned into a nightmare. Finally, they found a way to solve the old magic. They managed to send the dark forces back by overcoming many difficult obstacles. The manor was freed from its years-long curse, and silence began to reign. However, Bloom and Delma were no longer the same as before. These terrible experiences had affected them deeply. Their wedding turned into a nightmare, and now they still bear the scars of this curse that they spent together in their lives. At the end of this terrible story, Bloom and Delma had survived, but they would live with the memories of the dark experiences they had gone through. The manor house may have remained silent, but its spirit still bore the traces of this unforgettable wedding. Amelia and Benjamin had been planning their dream wedding for years. They had meticulously organized every detail for their big day. The wedding was to take place in a beautiful, historic mansion deep in the countryside, and they invited friends and family from all over. As the wedding day approached, Amelia began to notice strange events. It started with little things like missing wedding invitations and misplaced place cards. The pre-wedding tensions had made them a little nervous, but things escalated. One night, just weeks before the wedding, Amelia was awakened by the sound of whispering. He turned on the lights, but there was no one in the room. The whispers got louder and louder, and "Don't marry her and it's not too late." Terrified, he tried to wake Benjamin up, But Benjamin was in a deep sleep and could not be woken up. Another time, she found her wedding dress torn, as if it had been cut with scissors by someone. Amelia was sure that he had hung her safely, but she could not explain how he had hurt her. Panic set in, and she began to have nightmares of a sinister figure lurking in the shadows, whispering dark secrets. Amelia confided in her best friend Zeta about the strange events. Zeta suggested that they consult a local psychic for answers. The psychic sensed a dark presence in the mansion and warned them that the location of the wedding could be cursed. He told them that restless spirits might be trying to send a message. Amelia and Benjamin considered moving the wedding to a different location, but they had invested a lot of time and money in the mansion and did not want to disappoint their guests. They decided to continue with their original plan. But Amelia couldn't get over the feeling that something terrible was going to happen. When the wedding day came, a feeling of fear hung in the air. The ceremony went on without a hitch, but during the reception, the chandelier above the dance floor suddenly fell to the ground, narrowly missing the newlyweds and their guests. Panic broke out and people began to leave in fear. Amelia and Benjamin are shaken and realize that the warning whispers and strange events are more than coincidences. The dark history of the mansion had caught up with them, and they had narrowly escaped a terrible fate. The wedding had turned into a night of terror, and Amelia and Benjamin could not ignore the supernatural forces that were trying to sabotage their special day. The curse of the mansion had almost taken over them, and when they walked away from the old mansion, they knew that they would carry the chilling memories of that day with them for the rest of their lives. Natalie and Daniel were a deeply in love couple, and their wedding day was fast approaching. They decided on a rustic, remote cabin in the woods as the perfect venue for their intimate ceremony. The secure location promised a beautiful backdrop for their special day, but it also hid a creepy secret. While Natalie was meticulously planning her wedding preparations, strange events began to unfold. He would wake up sweating and shaking in the middle of the night, unable to remember what had caused his terror. Her wedding dress, a stunning heirloom passed down from generation to generation, was inexplicably moved from its safe place in the wardrobe to the foot of her bed. Daniel shrugged off his worries as stress-related nightmares. But the events became more disturbing. One evening, while testing the sound system for their vows, they heard eerie, disembodied whispers from the speakers, promising doom and despair. Natalie was shaken, but Daniel insisted that it was just a technical glitch. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, not Ollie's friends and bridesmaids also reported disturbing experiences. They claimed that they saw shadowy figures lurking in the woods around the cabin and that the temperature inside the cabin sometimes dropped, cooling them to the bone even on hot days. Not Ollie's anxiety increased as their wedding day approached. The hut, a place that should have been a paradise of love, had turned into a house of horror. He secretly consulted a local historian who revealed that the land had a dark past. It had once been inhabited by a reclusive family known for their secret practices and had become the site of mysterious disappearances. On the fateful day of the wedding, the atmosphere in the cabin was tense as Natalie was walking down the hallway. A freezing wind suddenly blew out all the candles, plunging the room into darkness. A blood-curdling scream echoed through the hut and sent a chill through the guests' bodies. Horrified, the wedding party rushed out, but saw that the hut was otherwise shrouded in a greenish mist. Natalie and Daniel found themselves trapped in a nightmare while trying to escape. They saw the ghostly figures of the long-lost family. The couple managed to break free and escape from the hut. The ominous whispers of spirits lingered in their ears as they ran, harbingers of doom and curses. The hut, once a symbol of love and happiness, stood as a cursed monument of a wedding that went horribly wrong. Natalie and Daniel have never forgotten the horror they witnessed, and the hut in the forest has forever been enshrined in their lives as a terrible place. And this hut hides secrets too dark to comprehend. Goodbye. See you in other stories.